Welcome back to the Trading Alchemist, everyone. It is March 4th, 2026. It's Wednesday, and boy, do we have some action going on in these charts. Let's take a look. Okay, great. So let's dive right in here. So, let's see. Look at that move, huh? Now, isn't that fancy? So, it looks like we bounced off of the 50% range, the 50% line in the previous range over here, and we're towards the top, the high of the range. So, what's happening here? Well, first of all, we're not skyrocketing up to the top here, so just that's not the way these charts move. So, let's not expect that, okay? So, let's keep it kind of local for a little while until we figure out exactly what's happening. Because even though everything is running high, we are still in this range here. Okay, so if we were to break this right over here, we obviously, however high we go, we're going to have to come back here and test this. So that's important. Keep that pinned. Now, how high would we go? Really, how high would we go if we do break this area and we start to move up? What are we looking at? Well, first of all, you see this cluster right over here? There's a nice little cluster here. You notice how this kind of looks like a box right there? That is an order block. That's an order block right there. So we would assume that it's going to try to reach up there as high as it can. If it goes up here, this would be resistance. You see where the resistance is right there? Right there. Here, let me point to it again. Right there. Look where the resistance is right there. Now the next thing for I'll add one more arrow there. The next part of resistance is obviously up here. You see this right here? This little cluster right there? That's the next resistance line. So we have to take this in steps. So first, it needs to break this area. Now, that doesn't mean that it can't go above it a little bit and work its way back down. That doesn't mean that. What it means is that we break up above and we retest. That's important. We need to retest. We need to retest the resistance area in order for us to move up. Okay? So other than that, this is what I see. Okay? Triangle. Triangle. Circle. Circle, circle. That's what I see. So if we've got a pattern here and we were kind of keeping it elementary, right? So I would assume that even if it got even high above here, there would be some kind of reaction. Now, how far down it goes, I have no idea. Maybe this little nub is it. But if it does break above here, remember, if it breaks above here, it's going to be looking for the next resistance area right there. So we can see some kind of reaction, come back, maybe test this area, and work our way there. Now, there are a couple of clues that we need to look at real quick. First of all, look at this. You see, oh, that's my eraser. Look at this real quick. This is a lower high, a lower high. This is a lower high, a lower high. Up. This breaks it. This is a one notch higher high. And now we are working our way into whatever this is right here. Now, as far as the lows go, you can see here, this is a lower low, just right there, lower low, right here, and here is a higher low. It's a one notch there. So this right here is a good clue as to what might be happening. Now, we cannot dismiss the fact that we're in a range. We can't dismiss that. We are still in a range. So, however the range play is going to be, the range play is going to be. We might not be out of the woods yet. Also, if you notice, from December, we were in that range play as well. Notice that? And here was the range play right over here. It poked its head over and it hit. Now, what I see in this section is, let me do this. In this section here, we've got triangle, triangle, triangle. And yeah, this was a try, but it was a triangle, right? This was a resistance area. And over here was circle, right? And here is circle right over here. So there's the pattern right there, right? And I'm using these shapes because it goes along with one of the other videos that I made so that you can kind of get out of this idea of price. Price is not what's interesting enough. Get rid of that. Go, buy. This is what you should be looking at as far as patterns go. Patterns. And then you get into the nitty gritty. Okay, so if I'm going to short in this area, what's the price range that I'm looking at? All right, last thing I want to do is I want to go over to Ethereum because Ethereum is making its way up to the top two. Actually, it's doing pretty well here. So again, here we go. This is following everything. You see this? It's following. It's following the steps. This is a lower low, higher low, higher low. Okay, we're still in the range though. And here we go. This is a triangle, triangle, and here we are again at triangle. So, and if this is circle, 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 right? So that's where we are. We are still in the range. And if we were to break above the range here, if we were to break above, where would we go? We would go to this cluster right over here. See this? We would have to break that cluster. This would be our next resistance area. So if this is not the short area right here, this is probably the short area right there. Now, as far as everything goes, are we going to the moon? Maybe there's a shift in direction, but let's take a look at some more clues. Okay, let's take a look at some of the stuff that we had before. So I'm gonna pop this up here, and I'm going to actually turn on those ribbons that I had in one of the other lessons for you to take a look at. So let's just turn that on. Here we go. Okay, maybe I can get rid of this. Can I get rid of this? Yes, I can. I can get rid of this. Okay, so let's take a look. We are now above the green. So if we are above the green, obviously, once we're above the green, you know, it comes back here. It tries to use it as support. It's not quite as accurate, but we are above the green, which is good. But it also means that we can come back down to touch the green. Now, the other part is this red right over here, right? So let's go take a look at some of the red ribbons that are there. So let's go. Let's see what happens when we get close to the red ribbon. So look, here's a good one right over here. This is a good one. So we get above the green, we spike up. Okay, we get above the red. Okay. Let's see what else here. Let's see what else. You know what? I'm going to go to a bigger timeline here. Let's go over to the day chart. Actually, I think it works a whole lot better at the day chart here. So if you look, we are not above the green ribbon here. So this possibly could be right at this spot right here. Again, here's that order block that I was talking about. This could be resistance. We still got this that crossed over. So if we go take a look at what the other chart did over here, you can see what happens when we spiked up. This is probably the area right over here. This is probably a good area to look at, right? We got above it. We're stretching up. So yeah. So I don't know if we're out of the weeds yet. Just take a look at that and see what you can see. Because these are pretty big spikes right here. These are pretty big spikes, and we actually got above here, and look, it looks like we got above, and then we bounced here on the red. So I would assume that it would do something somewhat similar, right? But we're still just actually starting to cross right over here. We're starting to cross, so it needs to catch up. Now, could this do something different? It could, but I wouldn't, you know, this is a pattern. That's exactly what it is. So let's take a look at the bigger time frame here. We got a cross there. There we go. We got a cross right over here. This spike up came over here to touch. So, yeah, we could be stretching over into the section right over here. Let me turn on my my chart here to see exactly where we are. Oops, there we go. Yeah, we're where that order block is, right over there. So if I go down to a lower time frame, you can see there's like a little bit of an order block right there. Yeah. So that's some clues as to what's going on. Now, one of the things I wanted to I just wanted to say is that, you know, it's probably clear on the it's clear on the Ethereum chart. This and this are order blocks. That means that there is probably some orders that are sitting in here, and there are some orders sitting in here. This is all of the sells that are going on, right? Because there are other people that are looking at this as resistance. And these are all the buys. This is an order block that's here. And you can see the order block because of this right over here, and also like some clusters and resistance and all of that. And this is kind of like one of those Nintendo games that I'm going to leave you with right now. Talk to you later, everybody. Be safe. Bye.